Well, hello and welcome. Woyome escapes jail. Woyome escapes jail. Now, as a layman, I'm quite confused. Normally, I'll play the devil's advocate, but no, I'm confused. So I got myself a teacher to explain matters to me. But just briefly, how I understand it. Now, once upon a time, Mr. Woyome says, look, I have a contract with the state, and the state abrogated this part of the deal, so pay me. Then it turns out that there was no contract. So, God bless his heart, President Mills issued a statement to say, don't pay. Then they went to court and the judge says, look, stagger the payment, break it into 3, give us time to elaborate to find out whether they owe it or not. They came back and then they paid Woyome the full money. And then it turns out that, well, the state did not have a contract, so you bring the money. So the state says, well, Mr. Woyome, you got this money fraudulently, therefore I am going to criminally indict you and collect the money from you. Now, as far as I know, Mr. Woyome is not a burglar or an armed robber. He didn't break into any vault and take 50 million and run out. However, all through this court process, we just seem to hear the recipient of this check, who signed the check, who gave the check, who approved the check. All these people have vanished. So as a layman, I've gotten in the studio a very good lawyer to explain to us how these matters work. My name is Nana Sakwa. Very confused, but this is PM Express. Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying, and the topic explains itself. Woyome escapes jail. With us in the studio to educate us on how legal matters work, because Ahimfie law will be different, your house and my house law will be different. We are talking the laws of the land and how it's interpreted. Now, I have with me a very fine lawyer, Lawyer Yao Pong. Lawyer, you're welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for the tribute. I receive it.
He's a lecturer at Central University, and every time I leave that credit out, and I'm sure his students will be saying, hey, come on, let's claim him. He's also a private practitioner. But let's just watch this insert, what happened in court, to set the conversation going.
The court, presided over by Justice Victor Osei, accepted the defense of Woyome, saying the Attorney General failed to prove his guilt beyond reasonable doubt. About a year ago, the state asked the court to reverse the decision on 6 grounds. According to the state, the judgment acquitting and discharging Woyome for the offenses of defrauding by false pretenses and causing financial loss to the state should be set aside. The NDC financier was, in March last year, acquitted and discharged by the Accra High Court. Attorney General Marietta Brewer-Piopon, who was prosecuting the criminal case against Woyome at the High Court, had called 8 witnesses, including some former ministers. But Woyome called no witnesses to testify in his defense. He relied heavily on correspondence between Betty Modi-Jusu and the finance minister then, Kwabena Dufo, to make his case. Woyome, who addressed the media after securing a second consecutive victory against the state, said he has forgiven all those who verbally abused him in the 51 million financial scandal.
So I'm encouraging you to believe in your God first, and also believe in the court system and its appeal system. No matter whatever, truth will not hide. Truth will come up. Today, all those who have insulted me, done all that because of false information on it, I have forgiven them.
News understands that the Attorney General is considering the option of taking the case to the Supreme Court, mindful of the fact that the Apex Court had ordered the businessman to pay back the 51.2 million cedis.
So, you're all forgiven, all those you at home who uttered any bad or wrong word, you're forgiven. And lawyer.
Yes, sir.
So, basic understanding, there's a civil claim and there's a criminal claim. So this was a criminal claim, and the appeal court says no, there's no liability, you know. But then the same case has been to the Supreme Court before, and the Supreme Court says it looks as if they are creating looting and sharing.
Yes, good evening to our good friends who are watching and listening to us. Yes, exactly so. And interestingly, I was just making some notes, and I came to the exact quotation that the Supreme Court, speaking through Justice Doche, made. And it's here. It is a perusal of Exhibit AG 16 and AG 17, already referred to supra, indicates quite clearly that the second and third defendants, that's in that case Woyome and what have you, after their initial disagreements about their entitlements, later entered into an alliance to create, loot, and share the resources of this country, as if a brigade had been set up for such an enterprise.
It's very direct,
It
very
is.
specific, very
It
instructive.
It is. Then when you take today's decision, I have some little notes here. In today's decision, the Court of Appeal is saying, one specifically said that Woyome had a defense in law called a defense that is made in good faith. All right? That's a claim that he made in good faith, a claim of right, which means that even if something is wrong in law, but you believe that you were entitled to it, and you didn't not have any malice, or you didn't make the claim based on bad faith, then that will be a defense to you, and it will be for the Attorney General of the prosecution to then lead evidence on it to extinguish or counter that particular defense of a claim in good faith.
Okay, let's try and explain it in
now,
English.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That, I mean, if you think that I'm entitled to this water, if I think I'm entitled to this water, however, by law, because of your royalty, you are the only one who should drink this water. So if I take this water and I drink it, I thought that anybody who appears before your program and seeing only one water on the table, it is for the guests, not for the host. But unknown to me, by law, it is only a royal host who is entitled to it. So when I took the water and drank it, I didn't do so because I wanted to take away something that belonged to you. But rather, I thought that in practice, as I am your visitor, I'm rather the one who is entitled to the water. And it's a claim, claim of right. Faith. A claim of right based on good faith. There should be no malice. I mean, it's a mouthful, but I think I've tried to demonstrate
good faith.
Good understanding.
Can we apply it in the home? Something belongs to your wife, but you think, well, you know.
Like soup. When we're young, when you take fish from the soup, they say you have stolen. But in good faith, you are my parents. Once
I have to have meat on my soup.
Yes. Unknown to you, only your father is entitled to certain part of that chicken that has been put in the soup.
But if you look at this case and relate it to Mr. Woyome's case, so what is it? He thought he had the contract?
Well, from today's one, not that he thought he had the contract, but he believed, that according to the court, not about contract, but he believed that he was entitled to be paid by the state for some services rendered. And the court, from what I know, went further to say that the fact that prominent lawyers, experts, including the Attorney General, then also shared in his belief, if it was a belief at all, and not a fact, would then discharge any lingering doubt that he fraudulently misrepresented to this very intelligent person. But the court used some, what I'll call an ordinary quote and unquote language for everybody to understand. That an attorney general speaking law this way Talking, he said, talking law this way cannot be said to have been defrauded or to have been influenced by the misrepresentation or fraudulent misrepresentation by Mr. Woyome, who is not a lawyer. I'm just coming close to the language, the ordinary language, quote and unquote, that the court used for all of us to understand. So at the end of the day, the bottom line is that at this point in time, he will not suffer any jail term, but he's suffering a liability. The Supreme Court has said it. In fact, up to the final court remedies that you can have, the review at the Supreme Court, that the state is entitled to the monies that was paid to him, and therefore the state should recover it through the Attorney General. And for me, that is consistent with the position I've always held, in view of the growing evidence, that first and foremost, when we believe that somebody has been wrongly paid money, or that the state has mistakenly paid another money, or somebody by his own fraudulent misrepresentation and things like that, the state has lost some money, the first thing would be for the state to trace these monies, what it has been used for, and recover it. If it's been used to acquire properties, it should be possible for the state, through the appropriate judicial remedies, to recover these monies, even including the sale of these properties when the court has given them the appropriate remedy.
Lawyer, President Mills is on record to say, look, he gave a directive to say, don't pay. They went to court, the judge says, no, stagger the payment into 3. So we give us time to check to see if we owe this guy or not. I mean, does it not hold water in court? I mean, I don't know, in the courtroom, can you ask, well, why did you pay after the president? Why did you pay after the judge? Is it a question that is legitimate to ask in court?
Well, related to it is a question that you ask in your intro. Where are those who made it possible for the money to be paid? Because as you rightly said, we are not aware that this man took a gun and pointed it at the head of the appropriate people and the monies were paid, or a check was paid to him. We don't know that. And somebody said, somehow jokingly, that we also don't know that he used any juju or applied his belief in God, as he said, to influence anybody wrongly, which I know Almighty God will never do. But if that was the case, which we think is not the case because we are not told, so it means that, as the court identified, he believing that he was entitled to something in good faith, made a claim. Professionals, I'm talking about professional lawyers, experts, financial people at Bank of Ghana, Ministry of Finance, even these monies cannot be paid unless, I'm told, Auditor Generals and so on, Accountant General may also have to approve of these things. So after all these have been done, how do you then turn around? And the court even asked the question. People are saying that these so-called public officers then should have been called because, in fact, that was part of the decision of the High Court because they were material witnesses. The Court of Appeal said no, they couldn't have been material witnesses because a material witness is the one whose evidence will tilt this way or that way. They will tilt the case this way or that way. But these witnesses have, by documentary evidence, said that the man had a case against the state. The Attorney General then, in the court reproduced letters written by the then Attorney General to her deputy, who openly, and in fact, even after the Woyome judgment, the one that has just been affirmed, was given, still insisted that, yes, I've been vindicated. And if I'm asked 100 times, I'll soon say that the state had no case against Woyome. Well, that has been proven to be false in a way because the Supreme Court says that he didn't have any case against us, rather we had a case against him and therefore he should pay the money back to us. It is, so whether or not you will not suffer jail, in other words, this judgment will not have any prejudice or will not adversely affect the existing Supreme Court judgment that paid the money. That is why I think that the Attorney General should rather, in my own respectful view, and my relatively limited understanding of the law, that we should rather focus our attention more vigorously in recovering the money than probably going through the appeal, a further appeal, even though I would have wished that this decision is also appealed against, so that the Supreme Court, which has held that from some portions of the relevant evidence, this can be described as create, loot, and share, as if a brigade had been established for this enterprise to take resources, maybe to steal, but to plunder resources of this country. And if people are asking if implicit in this is not dishonesty or the commission of an offense, then I don't know what it is. So probably when it goes back to it goes further to the Supreme Court, the final decision will be settled. The gentleman has said, and I agree with him, that the truth will always vindicate you, and the truth will always be revealed. And I think that in this country, the final stage where we can say that truth, to a large extent or substantially, have been revealed or availed anyone is the Supreme Court. But, if I may repeat myself, let us rather focus more vigorously in the recovery of the money. I say that if this matter was given to a private lawyer to even take 0.1% of the amount, I believe that
all the houses would have been sold.
Probably so.
Sold all your chickens.
All in accordance with the same law.
You see, those who followed That's My Opinion today, I said, can we handle the truth because we are living a lie? I mean, why are we all very quiet about the chain? Because for 50 million, and if you look at Ghana's bureaucracy, it must have gone through a mill of stamps and signatures and minutes before this money gets paid. Yeah. Yet we are all here trying to criminalize the recipient. Big judges, big lawyers. So I can imagine the position of the appeal court. How do I criminalize him?
Yes, and rightly so. In fact, the first decision where Justice Doche made this very profound statement, which I say is of maybe founded on royalty. He also, in fact, had strong words for lawyers, strong words for the Attorney General's Department, the lawyers there, and also strong words for the court. Because in his view, this was not a matter that should have gone to this stage. But I, with all due respect, would not put any blame at the doorstep of the High Court judge. Because the High Court judge gave a decision, all right, if another party says, I am not interested in defending this matter, what useful purpose would be served by just going through a long process, waste state resources? Then subsequently, when the Attorney General's Department and the Mr. Woyome filed what they call the terms of settlement, he said, okay. And once the parties have said that we want to pay this way, usually the court may just grant it and enter what we call consent judgment. But in this case, the court still insisted that, okay, pay the first installment, because before that money is paid, and I have information that the court even added that condition, there must be evidence that the state has issued a certificate. The certificate enables the state to take taxes, exigible taxes, before the amount is paid. And it is until you've received that. There's a recent Supreme Court case, the so-called fire service condom uniform, you remember? Yes, the court held that until that certificate is issued, you cannot go into execution against the state. So the judge made that as a condition. But before everybody heard, not only was the first installment paid, but the entire installment had been paid. How do you blame a judge for that, with all due respect? And again, I also say that it was also unfortunate that the High Court that determined the first criminal case also, I would say with all due respect, unnecessarily castigated the Attorney General's department and their lawyers. I mean, these are fine lawyers. They do these things vigorously, even in spite of the fact that we all recognize that they don't have sufficient facilities to aid them in the prosecution of these cases. They're doing a fantastic job. But of course, as we say, a lawyer is as good as his brief. If the facts based on which you are going to court is weak, and you are not the one to determine, to rule in your favor, there's a third person, probably you may not want to start the case. But when the case is brought against you, you still have a way to defend, but you may be starting from a weaker position as compared to the other person. But in this case...
Let me take a break here. And when I come back, you really need to explain to how the system works. And the same old question, let me repeat myself. I turn up with a check, which I haven't stolen, I haven't robbed anyone for. And if the Attorney General is going to prosecute, they don't ask why you got the check, who paid the check, what belief did you get the check. It's just the check holder. I mean, if you're going to court with such a case, what sort of strategy do you hope to tell the judge, for the judge to say, you're right, the guy with the check did something wrong? Stay tuned, we're coming. Well, thank you very much for staying. And Woyome escapes jail. And we just, as a layman, and I'm sure you in the house, I also just wondering. Now, I want to find out what a legal strategy will be following the sequence of how Woyome got his check. President says don't pay, judge says don't pay. Some people within the bureaucracy thought, no, pay. And so eventually he gets paid. And then we all turn around and say, no, Woyome is a thief. He's stolen 50 million. He comes to court. So I'm the judge. My lord, this man has defrauded the state by 51. I'm sure the judge's first question was, how did he defraud?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, and rightly so. Both the High Court and the Court of Appeal obviously had to ask that question, which is relevant, that if you say that the particulars of offense which the police or the prosecution presented, defrauding by false pretenses, and you state that he falsely represented to some government officials, then the relevant question is, who are these government officials? Where are they? Why were they not called?
To find out how it is they were defrauded.
The substance is that your representation or misrepresentation should influence the person. All right? Can we say that the people, these government officials were influenced at the end of the day by your representation or misrepresentation? And so, but from the materials, the evidence, documentary evidence in particular available, as I said, it was obvious that if these people had been called, they were rather going to strengthen the case of the accused person. Because they have already said in writing, and some of the things they have said were in evidence, that and a lot of them were rather even tendered by the prosecution, interestingly.
I see.
So that is why the Woyome lawyers ask in the High Court that after you have led evidence to support the case of the accused person, including documentary evidence, how then do you turn around to say that I was defrauded? And again, the act of one Attorney General should bind. The Attorney General, that's why even if today we don't have an Attorney General, the system will still work. You cannot say that it is only an Attorney General that can commence criminal proceedings. So if there is no Attorney General, then you cannot be prosecuted. You cannot say that because It is personified. It is institutional. All right. So it doesn't even matter. But once one attorney general has taken that decision, then it should take a very strong basis for you to, of course, then question why the person did it. But then in doing so, then that person will have to be called and examine and cross-examine to find out whether or not, when that person with all the expertise said that this person is entitled to this particular amount of money or has an entitlement against the state. Whether you have had a second thought and upon further reflection, we are human. And in law, you can also recognize, that's why a high court judge rules against you, can go to the Court of Appeal and even to the Supreme Court. It's because we are human and we may be disposed to making errors in our decision making. So if they had subsequently changed their mind, then they should have been called to now justify why the state should bring such an action. But I'm saying that, be that as it may, the point really is that let us rather focus on the recovery of money, because like the O.J. Simpson matter, those who followed it to see. Even recently, I understand they have found some further evidence that may still put him into trouble if he's not lucky. But the civil matter will stand, even though, because the standard of proof is far higher when it comes to criminal proceeding, which we call proof beyond reasonable doubt. And in the civil, it's on the balance of probabilities, whose story is probable or not, and so on. But that is the standard. So the good thing is that I think most Ghanaians are not really expecting that he should go to jail. But our first and foremost,
to get the money back,
a reasonable expectation is that we get our money back.
Let me just catch up with this message, and it says, Nana, please, are we serious as a nation? What are they telling Ghanaians? Where are the rest of those who helped this man to take the money? Why the government of NDC behaving this way? Ghana. Woyome has gotten the boldness to have forgiven Ghanaians. God bless him. We get one from here. This one says, lots of poor graduates, more rich criminals. The sad case of Ghana, thievery is high. Simply get the 51 million cedis from Woyome. Simpliciter. So I think people are more, like you said, interested in the money rather than just trying to put him in jail. Now, Woyome's court case has died long ago, and he has been laughing at we the citizens. In short, this is not just loot and share, which I believe top politicians are involved in this scandal. The only thing we need to do at this point in time as a nation is to push for recovery of the 51.2 million Ghana cedis. Kingsman from Aflao. But one thing which that lawyer, if you let me digress a little bit and come back, is, there's been so many elements of scandal. I mean, some are huge, but some 51, I say, there's something about this 51 that we just can't let go. I mean, there's been 200, 160.
Even some to foreigners.
There's been some monies that are, gone, which shouldn't have gone. But this 51 is like, you can keep the 200, but this 51, you are bringing. I mean, why is this the political attachment? Why are we so sentimental about this 51 million?
Yeah, I think inherent in your question is also the answer. That I think it's also because of the political angle as well. A lot of people believe that even though he was not entitled to it, perhaps because of some political considerations, he was given. And so people are so unhappy about that, and especially where, number one, the Supreme Court has said that he actually sued on the contract relating to the construction of the stadia. And that was, sinned against Article 181 of the Constitution. But
Because Parliament didn't approve, therefore
of
the
it.
contract
Yes,
is null and void.
Yes, yes.
And I'm told, however, when it was abrogated, they paid him till the point of abrogation.
Well, I think, yeah, they paid Waterville, and Waterville paid. But he's saying that that is separate. There is another one relating to he facilitating. The interesting expression is financial engineering to enable Ghana sign a contract with an Austrian investment company. And that is what he claimed. But the Supreme Court has also said that the claim was rather in relation to the contract, which was null and void. So it was...
So he sued on the contract.
That is what the Supreme Court said. But then in the criminal matter, it has become clear that he was rather relying on
the go-between, acting as a go-between.
Yeah, in the village we say betweener.
So he was a Goro boy. You know,
yes, so
that's
why I want this case to go to the Supreme Court. Then we can match the finding of facts that were made by the Supreme Court, of reason that they offered for their decision, against what they would have said if the criminal matter was also placed before them.
But I mean, realistically, if you look at how long this case has dragged till today, it means that clearly we won't get the money back, as some people are saying, because otherwise by now some people in the chain would have been questioned. Who feels it? Why do you alone think that something happened and therefore you owe this? If we haven't done that, then clearly this money...
Well, I think we can separate the two, distinguish it. The first one about the civil, there is no impediment in our way to recover the money, as far as I'm concerned. Indeed, the gentleman, or through his representative, told the court, I think his lawyer, told the Supreme Court a couple of weeks ago, that he was unable to comply with his own promise or undertaking to pay the money by end of December last year, because the banks have frozen his account, have confiscated, so to speak, to use the word loosely, his money. And what a best way, or easier way.
How much is left in there?
Easier way to collect. Once it has been frozen, then it will still be there. So what? I cannot imagine an easier way to recover such money, for a judgment creditor to recover such money, than that. I cannot find any. Because all you do is to now get an order from the court to compel these banks, which by doing this through Bank of Ghana and so on, we can easily find, to bring all the monies they are holding on, bring his bank statement, which you cannot forge, tell us how much are you holding for this gentleman, 2 cedis, 25,000, 2 million. Bring all the monies and pay it into court for the benefit of the judgment creditor, in this case, the state. So I wonder why, in the face of even this declaration, it means that there are some monies which some banks are holding in this country
and frozen
on behalf of the gentleman, which monies the Supreme Court says do not belong to him anymore. It's for the people of Ghana. So I would still plead with my good seniors and good friends at the AG that this is just the easiest way to recover, at least, however infinitesimal or insignificant it may be. If people of Ghana see that at least 2 million of that money has been paid, they'll be assuaged a bit, and they will have the comfort, I won't say confidence, but the comfort and the confidence will be enhanced, and have a reasonable expectation that, after all, the monies will be paid or repaid.
This one says, Woyome is able to escape jail. Ghana has a long journey to recover this money. The outstanding arrears of teachers could have been taken from this sum, because the amount due is about 15 million Ghana cedis. And that is far lesser than the money claimed to be squandered by Woyome. Some of the messages coming in there. People have already done their budget already. Let me see this one. Medina to Somenya Road is turning into a death trap. Please, kindly tell the authorities concerned to do something about it before it's too late. This Edward. Okay, Edward, I thought you had costed the road. I thought you had
It was a portion of the money
you
to
costed
be
the road.
applied.
Let me get this one. This one says, Woyome is having a strong backing from stakeholders. He can never be prosecuted for a crime committed by collective responsibilities. Only change can save Ghana to retrieve this looted money. The president's committing to fighting corruption is a camouflage. These criminals must be brought to book. Hamidu Al-Hassan in Narerigu. Let me get the one from here. It says, God bless Woyome for forgiving Ghanaians. Nana, please ask the lawyer whether by this ruling, can someone call Woyome a thief or a fraudster? And can he sue anybody who call him so? This is Jimmy Ayabila from Tamale.
Well, I think you may be running yourself into trouble if you call him a thief or a fraudster. All I know is that the highest court of the land has said that he was not entitled to some monies paid to him by the state, and so he should refund it. Another court, at least at the level of the Court of Appeal, has said that even if that is what the Supreme Court has said, that does not amount to the commission of a criminal offense. So you may run yourself into trouble. He may bring a civil action against you to pay him compensation, and you may end up maybe adding more money to what the state has paid him, which is also forms part of your tax. So why don't you then be circumspect and just mention his name without adding any adverse adjectives that may land you into further trouble? I think it's enough that your tax money has been declared to have been wrongly paid to him, but that doesn't mean at this stage that he has committed any fraudulent act or a criminal offense.
It's an interesting one from Idi Muhayuddin. It says the 59th independence of Ghana is meaningless until we retrieve all our stolen monies from Alfred Woyome. It's interesting that anytime Martin goes to court against Woyome, he wins. But anytime the state goes, every time they lose against this NDC financier. He has a point there.
That is very interesting.
I mean, Idi Muhayuddin, you have a point. He has a point.
And perhaps he is suggesting that matters like this should be outsourced
to
Martin Hamidu to do it on behalf of the state. I think that's what he's implying, because if he goes against Woyome, he wins, but the state goes against Woyome, the state loses. Well, I would say that once the facts may not be the same, but even if they are, as I said, the burden, the standard which you have to reach in both cases are not the same. One is lowered, in my view, in the civil matter where Martin has been pursuing, and the other is not. But perhaps if Martin had continued to be the Attorney General, maybe until 4 years ago, it's possible that we may have recovered the money. And I think that is what he's saying. Because Martin will get his judgment all right, but Martin is not entitled in law to apply the well-known procedures which we call execution procedures or enforcement processes. So his duty ends there. But in view of the vigor and the vehemence with which he has pursued this case and the fortitude, perhaps he could have applied that same measure, or in that same measure, to the actual enforcement of the judgment. And that's what I think he's highlighting. Not so much that he may have won the criminal case, but so much that he would have been able, perhaps, to retrieve the money. But the point also is that the Attorney General works with other persons, not on your own. And the institutional inhibitions and restrictions, limitations, cannot be discounted. It's still possible that if he had been there, perhaps he may have recovered it to some extent, but not all, because the same people that are working on these matters, very competent lawyers, are the same that they would have worked with Attorney General. Maybe the difference may be in terms of style, the vigor, and the vehemence with which you want to approach your case. Some go steadily, and yet they achieve their results. Others also use the force that they can gather in view of the personality of that person, and you will still also recover.
So please, I agree with the lawyer that we should rather look for a way to retrieve the money back, even if not all sum. And this is your student, Abigail Sedinam, Central University. Central University, at least we should retrieve some. What does it bring? You see, what does it bring to the confidence in the legal fraternity? You see, in practice, the judge's hands is tied; he can't do anything. But from the layman, what confidence does it bring? Or
well, no, I take a rather strange view on matters like this when the so-called ordinary Ghanaian is brought in, because the laws are made by ordinary Ghanaians. Their representatives made these laws for them, and they are supposed to be their deed, their act, their laws. So they should understand the law and the procedure. The good thing is that when you are dissatisfied, or sometimes we say aggrieved by the decision of one court, the procedure is there. You move up until, as we know, they say the litigation must end. And so this should rather enhance our belief in at least the judiciary. Because I say always that if ever God blessed us with any institution which is independent, and more importantly, judges or decision makers who are independent minded, then it is the court and the judges. And our confidence in it, in this system, should rather be enhanced. That it is also possible that if we push further to the Supreme Court on this matter, they have the final say. They can reverse the two decisions. But for what useful purpose now? The more important thing is that highest court has said that the person is owing the people of Ghana. It's for nothing at all. This beautiful vehicle that he brought to the court.
It must be worth something.
It should be worth maybe 200,000 Ghana cedis for this gentleman's road. And then my good friend Kojo, my cousin, can use part to just solve the problems he's having at Ofansi and so on. Those bad roads. This one 200,000 can go far, Nana.
Nana, we need a balanced, not a one-way, because you shouldn't always call MPP members to your program. President Mahama's Sona, Nanado's Sona, and now this case. Nana, I used to like you, but you are now not neutral because your guest is a card-bearing member of the MPP, Al-Hassan Yakubu.
That is a big lie. He's a liar, because I don't have any party.
No, but even if you were an Anado, did the judge not rule? I mean, should everything be MPP, NDC? Are you saying that, I don't know.
Well, that is where we are now. But we'll still speak our mind.
NDC? The judge has ruled. The money is for the state. What would an MPP or an NDC do? We're talking legal matters.
All the judges are also MPP.
So all the judges must be
the
MPP.
Supreme Court ones are MPP, and then the Court of Appeal ones are NDC.
Exactly.
Let's stop this. You see, this is the situation that we find us. Incidentally, it is rather the so-called youth or young ones who are taking these things up.
These are facts. We're just dealing with facts. And,
But I put on record, I don't have any party's card.
On the subject of this matter, I don't think it's relevant.
Case, I think it's so shameful that he should bring such a matter.
So Yakubu,
with all due
and
respect.
on the other cases, I told you several times, because we rang, and the NDC refused to come on the show. I said it on air. We called Omani Boama, we called Ato Forsen. I gave you names of people who have called who won't come. What should I do? Come on air and say, well, today there's no show because NDC won't come. So please, just open your mind and let's think red, gold, green just for 1 hour. And then we are done. 1 hour, then we are done. But let me catch up with some more messages. Nana, we are interested in jailing Woyome, but what we are interested more in is our money, period. This is Techi in the worker. So this doesn't mind, look, the money more, but a little bit of jailing.
A deterrence, yes.
Nation do not mistrust each other because they are armed, but they are armed because they mistrust each other. Okay, nations do not mistrust each other because they are armed, but they arm each other because they mistrust each other. I mean, that's very philosophical.
Yeah, yes, it is.
Woyome has armed himself against Ghana. I'm going to take a quick break here. When I come back, I'll catch up with some of your messages, and then we'll find out what's the way forward. What do we do to make sure such a thing doesn't happen again? Stay tuned. Well, thank you very much for staying. And we're discussing legal matters and legal complexities. Woyome went to appeal court today and eventually was freed. Some of your messages says, I don't agree with people saying Woyome should pay some. He should pay all the money. The money belongs to the people of Ghana. We need water and good education. But before I come here, to the guy who's politically slanting my show. Now, Woyome himself says he wants to pay, but his bank has refused the money. So what, is Woyome now MPP because he wants to pay? Yeah. I mean, he himself is saying, look, I'll pay the money, but my account has been frozen. So then how do you weigh, this MPP, NDC thing about it?
Yeah. I think he doesn't even deserve
that was a low blow. Yeah. That was a low blow. But is there anything we can put in there to stop it from happening? Because it looks like it's now an open gap. If I see an opportunity and I get a couple of people, look, sign for me, all you have to do is say yes, 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 I'll keep the money, and then we go. I mean, how do we stop it from happening again?
Well, I think there are sufficient mechanisms to prevent the such events occurring. I'll call them so.
Which are now in place or were in place.
Oh, have always been in place. Yeah, I mean, the law is clear. A matter like this, because not only one person, even if it's an offense, one person can never, in my view, commit such an offense, and you will need those other people who may be aiding or abetting or conspiring.
So tomorrow, you are the Attorney General, and you're my friend. So I come in and I say, look, I managed to get this money. If they come and say, you say, well, no, Betty Mould wasn't called, she wasn't called, so why are you calling me? Can that become a precedent, or you can't go and say that because you didn't call this, don't call me?
Well, I think the cases can be looked at on case-by-case basis. It is possible. You see, then that is also one problem. If an Attorney General, let's say, commits an offense, who will take the Attorney General to court? Because she's the only one who should determine whether or not criminal proceedings should be commenced against you, unless her subordinate will now have to take her to court. And so it is a very difficult situation. So perhaps, as some people are saying, there must be an independent institution to determine some of this matter. But I think the bottom line, Anna, is your conscience as a citizen of Ghana. A lot depends on our conscience. A lot depends on our loyalty to the state and also the commitment. And a lot more even depends on our compliance with my favorite provision in the Constitution, Article 41F, that we must combat and prevent waste of state resources. And if we want to go by that, then it doesn't matter who that person is. Of course, occasionally, as a human being, applying your knowledge of the law, you may make mistakes, or applying any other expertise, you may make mistakes, but that can be forgiven. But not some other mistakes that can lead to the state losing such huge amount of money, taxpayers' money. That may be a problem. So moving forward, I'm saying that let's first apply our conscience. But number two, there are sufficient rules that when matters like this happen, the people who made it possible for it to happen or to occur must also be made to face the law. First, find out whether they benefited, and it will be easy to find out whether they benefited.
Let me read this before Somalia Idris Yakubu Zakaria Prestia. A long name. He kills me. He says, Nana, let them chop. The time will come in their grave. He comes in again and says, please, Nana, do well to read my message. All the political parties have nothing good for the country than to create, loot, and share. May God help our land. So, Somalia, I've read your message.
Frustrated. Yes. Yeah, so I think that we should just apply the law. I mean, if we don't apply the law, similar thing. And I made the point elsewhere that it appears the state is now becoming an unreasonable victim. Oh, boy, yabu mi biem. Oh, boy, yabu mi biem. Yabi yamio. I mean, a state that has been appropriately referred to as an entity having awesome powers. And people have been challenged to try and see how awesome, powerful the state is, with all the coercive force. And all you do is that, and it happened even in the recent Sumatis case. Why should we always be crying against individuals? With all our collective force, the soul of the state, very strong, must we still continue to be crying like victims that an individual has been able to defraud us? I think we should not really entertain that. And therefore, the very people who will be saying that the state has given me, and you know, these people, properly so-called, they are trustees, like Nananum. So as a trustee, you are taking care of a property that belongs to others, even though you may also be a beneficiary. And so the first question is, if this was my own personal property acquired from my sweat, is that how I'm going to apply? So as a trustee, for example, you cannot be expected generally to put the proceeds of the sale of a trust property in, let's say, current account, where there will be no interest, or gamble with it, or allow someone to come and take it. Can you imagine a bank? You go to a bank, you want a loan, and then the bank just gives it to you, or you take it, and later on we will consider some matter. And then the managing director or the branch manager turns around to say that, oh, I made a mistake, I gave the money. You will be fired first, and if it borders on criminality, you will be sanctioned. And if you have some provident fund or other benefits, they will all be applied against it. We have similar ones even in the Financial Administration Act and the appropriate laws. The point is, let me read the Auditor General's report. I have stopped because sometimes it can even just cause you to cry blood. shed blood.
Heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. And usually you see, I mean, there's nothing really going on. All we do is the ceremonial pack. You go there, Parliament to write their report, and that's how it ends. And each year becomes worse than the previous year.
Well, let's hope that...
Let's apply the law. I think that's the best way.
Let's apply the law. Thank you for all those who send messages. I mean, there's lots of it. I couldn't catch up with it all. Thank you very much. But, well, we've been educated. Let's wait and see if the money will be retrieved before the account is defreezed, because I'm sure as soon as you defreeze that account, it's going to be empty. So, Attorney General, that's a little hint there. At the moment, the account is frozen, so go in there and take whatever it is you want to take out. And let me remind you that on the 26th of March, all roads are leading to Edumasa for our big festival. My 5 years on the throne and all that. On the Monday, Easter Monday, we're all going to the Jekiti Beach, the famous Jekiti Beach. If you haven't been there, you don't want to miss that. But more details will be coming as we are approaching the time. Lawyer, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys at home for tuning in.
Expect me, I'll be there.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you owe me, so you have to. And tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again. Thank you for watching. Look.